You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter at Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. And I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Packers part of their daily routine, who makes us their first listen. We love starting our day with you, and we hope you will continue to start your day with us. And if you don't, get a little coffee. I just got a new coffee maker. It makes great coffee. And put on some Locked On Packers while you do it. We have Ed Smith, former NFL tight end. He is also the host of the BLeave in the Arizona Cardinals podcast, has a local radio show in Phoenix. He is on the show to talk us through the Arizona Cardinals on a short week. We're going to devote a little bit more time to talking about them this week. But obviously, if you were on the internet, if you had a communication device of any kind yesterday, you heard the news that Davante Adams tested positive for COVID-19. He is on the Packers COVID-19 reserve list. And before we get to all the numbers and all that stuff, let's just start here. Vaccinated players, and Davante Adams is vaccinated, get tested once a week. It was once every 2 weeks, and they changed it. It's now once a week. So what that means is it may be the case that Davante Adams would have tested positive earlier in the week. That is why all of these mechanisms are important. So vaccinated players, in order to be cleared to play, need 2 negative tests 24 hours apart. So he could test negative today and tomorrow and play Thursday. He could test negative Wednesday, Thursday, and if they can get him on a private jet to Phoenix in time, he could play. Now, you have to plan like he's not going to play, but if he does, hey, great, you've got him. He'd have to be asymptomatic and have those negative tests. But I bring up the testing schedule for this reason. It's possible that 3, 4, 5 days before he tests positive, he would have tested positive. We don't know where in the cycle of COVID Davante Adams is. The difference before last year, they were getting tested every day. So presumably the first day that they would be testable, or that they would have enough viral load. We didn't need to get in like the full epidemiologist of this, but the first day that they would test positive would be the first day that presumably they would test positive, because they're getting tested every day, right? So unless their yesterday's test was a false negative, whatever, we don't need to get into the minutia of that. But we don't know when Davante would have been truly, if he were being tested every day, positive, which is why it is not that he's been totally ruled out of Thursday. And if he were vaccinated, then he'd just be done. If he were unvaccinated and tested positive, it'd be over. But he has said on the record he's vaccinated, so he's not a close contact. That means he pops positive, and there is still a chance that he could play on Thursday, albeit a very small one, of course. There is a flip side of this with Arizona. They are coming out of a COVID loss. Chandler Jones coming back to the team. We'll get to that part of this coming up. But there is a big push now to point out all of the times that the Packers have won without Davante Adams. And I wrote about it today at The Leap. It's not just that they did it. And I know that there is this idea from a lot of people that the Packers offense, Rodgers actually runs the offense more effectively with Adams out, because he's forced to run the offense rather than focus on Tay. And I think that is an overstated criticism because I think it's actually good to get your best players the ball. I know I have this blind spot where I think it's good that your best players should get the ball, but that's what I believe. Now, do I think there are times when he misses other open receivers because he's focused on getting into Davante? Yes. Does that bother me? Kind of not really. I mean, if he's really missing guys or he's like not running the play because he's trying to get the backside post to Davante Adams and there's a guy wide open with the concept being run the way that it's supposed to be run, that's not really happening though. Now, he missed Davante on the 4th down touchdown early, and he admitted as much. He said, I should have thrown it right away and didn't. Was able to get back to him for a touchdown. That's what makes him special. It's what makes Davante Adams special. The offense is not better without Davante Adams. I'm going to give you the numbers, but the numbers require some context here. So in the 6 games without Davante Adams, the Packers are 6-0. Rodgers has a passer rating over 125. He's got 17 touchdowns and just 1 interception. Unbelievable numbers, really. Unbelievable numbers. And when you look at the why, okay, because that's what we do here, right? The why and the how. It is because Matt LaFleur is so good at pushing the offense in different ways. When he has to be malleable, when he has to say, okay, it can't be Davante or it can't be Rodgers just bailing the offense out if things don't work. It has to be very precise, very pinpoint in terms of these are the matchups that we like and these are the ones that we are going to have to exploit. That is how they approach this. And if it's not how they approach this, this is how it has ended up in many cases. Go back and think of those 6 games, right? There is the Aaron Jones 4-touchdown game against Dallas. He was phenomenal, but he was clearly the focal point of what they wanted to do. Running the ball, passing the ball. I mean, screen game, swing game. Same thing with the Chiefs. Over 200 all-purpose yards. He had the Sluggo touchdown that he stepped out of bounds on. Wasn't really a touchdown. Had the screen where he's the receiver in the receiver screen. Touchdown. They would run the clear outs, and then they would have him run a little Texas route inside. And throw it to him. And on the game sealing 3rd down, they had him run a little option route and they threw it to him and they won the game. It was the all Aaron Jones show against the Saints. I mean, Marquez Valdes-Scantling played in that game, got 4 targets, had 1 catch, but it was the Allen Lazard show. Over 140 yards, had the touchdown, should have had another one. And against the Falcons, it was Big Bob 3-touchdown Tunyon. That was the game, and I've brought this up a bunch because I think it's incredible. They ran a variation of mesh to get Malik Taylor wide open. Malik Taylor. That was where their receiver depth chart was. Now, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, according to Doug Kyed from or Keed, I don't know how to. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. As someone whose name is often butchered, I do apologize for that. I've only really ever read it, so sorry. But he says Marquez Valdes-Scantling is expected to be out there this week for the Packers. That would be obviously a huge boost for them. Now, when it comes to what he brings, this is also really important because he makes the geometry of the offense work. He makes the ability to attack deep, to attack underneath and in the middle. All of that has to be working in concert with one another. So you have Marquez Valdes-Scantling, his ability to push the ball down the field, to take safeties deep, to take the top off the defense. That's what we mean when we say take the top off. All this try to put a lid on the defense, we're talking about trying to pop that top. And that creates opportunities for guys underneath. They have players who can work the sidelines and the middle of the field. Allen Lazard on the sidelines, the body control, the size. Middle of the field, he can work on the inbreakers. Big Bob Tunyon in the middle of the field. Randall Cobb in the middle of the field. Underneath, Cobb. Amari Rodgers if you want to. The running backs, Mercedes Lewis, Josiah DeGuara. They have the players to hit all levels and continue to run this offense as it is intended to be run. What they don't have is it's 3rd and 8. You have to convert. Now what? And in a matchup with the Arizona Cardinals, that's what you need. That's what you need. So as we sit here 2 days out, where might that be? Well, the Cardinals are 26th against what Football Outsiders calls the other receivers. So not receiver 1, not receiver 2, not your X, not your Z. Your slot guys, your others. Could be a big Randall Cobb game. By the way, the Packers number 1 in DVOA against those receivers. On the flip side of that, the Cardinals are number 1 in defense against tight ends by DVOA because of guys like Isaiah Simmons and Budda Baker. The running backs, that could be a place. That could be a place to get Aaron Jones involved. And when you think about what the Packers were able to do last year and the year before, get Aaron Jones in space, the swing routes, the jet sweeps, the actually get him split out and running routes, make Isaiah Simmons, make Zaven Collins, make Budda Baker, make their guys who are more than capable of covering Aaron Jones. Now, not every play because Aaron Jones is really good, but those guys can do it, but make them do it. Make them do it play in and play out because they might slip or they might get juked. Jamin Davis, great example last week. He is a 4'4" freak athlete linebacker. Big Bob Tunyon, not as athletic as him. Not as, does not have the explosiveness that Davis does. Beat him on a corner out spacing. Basically just spacing. Because Tunyon can run to open space and Davis is not a miracle worker. He's not Superman, and so he couldn't cover the open space. If you have MVS in the game, that creates more open space for your offense to work. So that part of this is really important. And you just have to be detailed. The timing. We saw last week, Rodgers in a great check at the line, gets to the screen, Allen Lazard in the slot on the Lazard drive, and they pick up a cheap first down because of the alignment. On another play, you have, I believe it was against the Bears, EQ gets the perfect block on the outside at the perfect time, sets up Amari Rodgers to make a play on, again, just one of those little smokescreen RPOs. Those are the details because you go back to that Raiders game when Aaron Rodgers had a perfect passer rating in 2019 without Davante Adams. One of the big plays of the game to seal it was MVS on just a little out route, 3rd and 5, and you get a block down the field that springs that. Those are the plays that you have to make. Those are the plays because that is going to be the difference. And the defense and all that, we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about it with Ed. We'll talk about it with Lily. We'll talk about it with Bo and Alex when we do our crossover. You have to be on your details. And that little bit, Aaron Rodgers talked about this after the game last week, that little bit that this team is off, they have to find that 5 to 10% to ratchet it up, to fill that gap that they're missing, or they're not going to win. I mean, this is the first game where they're going to play where that's the case. Week 1, they got jumped, whatever. That game was never really close. But this game, Packers are playing well. They've won 6 in a row. Offensively, defensively, they're starting to find a rhythm. But now it's my guy against your guy, and the Packers don't have the guys. So you can't be the team that makes those mistakes. Those mistakes were okay when you had all your horses. Well, now the stable's empty, and you just got to go with the people that are there, and they got to figure out a way to do it. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Get Upside, an app I am so excited to tell you about because gas prices are crazy right now. They're crazy. My listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now. Use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get that 50 cent per gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people who are driving a lot, they're making $200 or $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. Cash comes out, put it in your bank account, put it in your PayPal, put it on Amazon, whatever you want to do. Just get your money. And when you use the promo code touchdown, you will get a 50-cent per gallon cash back on that first tank. Joining me now, former NFL tight end and host of the BLeave in the Arizona Cardinals podcast, Ed Smith. Follow him on Twitter at Ed Smith Speaks. Ed, it is great to be with you. Thanks for coming on.
Peter, great to be on with you, man. This a great matchup coming up. Who would have thought it'd be, a 7-0 team and a 6-1 team? I think everybody would have expected your Packers to be in that situation, but definitely not us out here in Arizona. But it's great, man.
Well, and the tables really are turned because the Packers, without David Bakhtiari, at least right now, we don't know if he's going to be ready for this game. Without Zadarius Smith, he's on IR. Without Jair Alexander, he's on IR. And now potentially without Davante Adams, who is on the COVID-19 list, an outside shot that he can play. Before the Davante news came out, Ed, how did you handicap this matchup, and how do you think that changes how you view the way that this game is going to go on Thursday?
That's a great question, Peter, because beforehand, you look at the weapons, you look at everything that, you guys can do offensively with Aaron Rodgers and the rest of the cast. I just thought, I'm not necessarily, and here's the thing, I keep explaining to everybody out here, nobody's going 17-0. So even with the 7-0 start, it's, everybody's thinking, we're just going to roll through the season. At some point, there's going to be a bump in the road. And I thought this Green Bay Packer game, me specifically, you and I were talking even before the show, I had the Cardinals at 8-9 overall for the season, which means they would have already lost a couple. And I picked this one against the Packers as a loss. When you think about Rodgers and Adams and everybody coming in here, Jones, But now, I guess we have to talk. And I talked to my radio. We did our BLeave in the Arizona Cardinals podcast earlier today already. And normally we're getting ready for a Sunday game. By the time we get ready to do our radio show on Saturday, this game's already going to be on the book. So, it's like normally I have an opportunity to change my mind accordingly. Right. This one doesn't, and I'm still holding that right, Peter, because until I find out what you guys are coming here with, who stays in the protocol, who's available, who's not, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Cardinals might be 8-0 after this game. Which, wow, who would have ever thought? But at the same time, you can never put anything by that magic man, Mr. Aaron Rodgers. So I say it with little trepidation. I'm picking the Cardinals right now, and we can look score and different things, outlook and everything later on. But golly, who would have thought at this point in the season, even contemplating the Cardinals being the last undefeated team, getting ready to battle the 6-1 Cardinals or Green Bay Packers?
Well, and it would not be the first time that Arizona saw Aaron Rodgers with a beleaguered and an injured cast come in and perform some miracles, right? I mean, the Jeff Janis double Hail Mary in the playoff game in 2015 season. I mean, they have seen Aaron Rodgers pull off some magic twice, 2 playoff losses at the hands of the Arizona Cardinals, both games that Aaron Rodgers was truly unbelievable. I want to talk about Arizona this season, because I was telling you before we started recording, I was like you. I did not think that they were going to be this good. And who knows how they finish, right? I mean, we'll see where they shake out. Last year, they started really hot. Kyler got hurt, and all of a sudden, things just, it built and fell off a cliff a little bit. What has changed from last year to this year?
It's funny you bring up the fact, last year, we were at one point, we were 6-3, and I kept telling everybody, pump the brakes, because I'll go back to last year. Peter, I actually picked the Cardinals, and obviously we're talking an extra game this year, but I had them at 8-8, right? Okay. So at one point they were 6-3, and everybody was just clowning me and my radio partner like, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. So then the descent started, and it all started with Kyler getting hurt. And they ended up 8-8, and I looked like Nostradamus, basically, right? So this year I picked them, and a lot of people, picked them 8-9 with the extra game, and I'm thinking, we made some strides last year, but didn't see anything during the offseason or preseason. They kind of kept a lot of things close to the vest. A little worried about Kyler and his leadership. You bring in a J.J. Watt, which on paper it looks really nice. But we know how JJ can check out on you for about 6 or 7 weeks or for the rest of the season at any given time. Same thing with AJ Green.
Yep.
So they brought in some pieces. Like, okay, that's nice, but how does that really improve us? Along with Larry Fitzgerald not coming back, we picked up a couple.
Well, and for how long too? You mentioned like they're likely at some point to get hurt, and they just haven't so far.
Yeah, and then like I said, you lose Larry Fitzgerald, you bring in a Connor, different things, and then the other thing, Peter, you look at this division, and it's all kind of flip flop right now. Where in the beginning of the year, you knew the Rams were going to be really tough. Seattle, we're just always counting them. Then Russell gets hurt. San Francisco looks like they have no idea what the heck they're doing. But in the beginning of the year, I was like,
genius, Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah. And I was thinking the Cardinals could be fourth in this division, just because of who we're playing in our division. And then the season starts, and we all know it's just like going to the casino. You have no idea. You pull the money out your pocket, and you have no idea what you're going home with. And that's exactly what happened with this season so far. We've had, like I said, crumbles in different areas, and we're now 7-0. For me, this team, and you asked the question, what's changed with them? One, we have actually utilized our running game, which is surprising to me. We have a tendency out here, we get away from it quick, it doesn't work, and all of a sudden now we're throwing the ball all over the field, horizontally, not vertically, and we're, next thing you know, it's, just everything's out of sorts. We've stayed consistent with that running game. The other thing with our defense, we had no idea what we were going to get. You get Chandler Jones out of the box with 5 sacks in the first game. He hasn't been heard of or seen since. But what Vance has done, Joseph, what he's done with this defense is I think he's become a little less predictable. He is doing
a little chaos.
Little chaos. He is. There are times when I'm watching and I'm like, okay, here we go. They're going to drop into that zone. And all of a sudden, he's throwing these zone blitzes and guys coming out of nowhere. And it's been a pleasant surprise because he has actually taken different ingredients and made a different meal, a much better meal. He's got, he's kind of formulating something that I think is going to be a great asset moving forward, because now you can't dictate what he's going to do. And I'm just loving it. We still haven't seen much from our special teams, Peter, but, that's yet to be seen whether they help us win a game or two. But with special teams, if you're not going to help us win one, just don't lose one for us, So
Packer fans are familiar with that feeling, very much familiar with that feeling. So offensively, you mentioned the run game. I think the one area that I like Cliff Kingsbury is he has some smart run designs. But to your point, they can get away from them. They're actually adjusted for schedule, 22nd in rushing, but they're a top 5 passing offense because Kyler has been unbelievable. One of my biggest criticisms of Cliff has been that he has decided that the offense is Kyler go make a play, and it's a lot of 3-by-1 and DeAndre Hopkins on the backside singled up, and it's not just Kyler go make a play, it's Kyler and DeAndre go make a play. Now they've gotten more guys involved. I think he threw a touchdown pass. We had 4 different receivers caught touchdown passes on Sunday or whatever it was. They bring in Zach Ertz, but where are you with Cliff Kingsbury and his role in all of this? Because I'm still kind of going, I don't know. I don't know.
Peter, you've done some great research, man. You're right on top of it, because I'm right there with you. My verdict on Cliff Kingsbury, if we were trying to come to a decision, would be a hung jury right now, and primarily because I'm still waiting on him. Like week 1, we haven't been in those big, huge games yet. It's nice to win early season games, but when we get into the crunch, when it gets to later in the season, and every win could dictate whether you're a division champion or a wild card. What I'm waiting to see, which he's done a nice job so far, is those opportunities where he has to adjust on the fly. A lot of times with Cliff coming into the season, especially last year, was we got the game plan, let's go and let's do it. And then the other team, obviously, they game plan against you and scheme. They take something away from you, and Cliff is like, we're just going to keep doing it until it works. And that's not how this game is in the NFL. You have to be Johnny on the spot, making corrections and making all kind of changes, and it's not from halftime to halftime. Sometimes it's series to series. You see something, boom, we got to make a change because that's no longer going to work. They're doing this against this. So what I've seen so far is he's been on top of that. My worry is because it's been in very unstressful situations so far. We all know, like I said, as the season goes on and things get tighter and decisions have to be made fast, then those booties can get a little tight, man. And I'm waiting to see whether he's got that, I guess, characteristic of like a Belichick, like a Tomlin, like different guys when, boom, hey, let's go for that fake punt right now. We've been saving this all year. This is the time. It's 4th and 1. Who cares what the analytics say? Let's do this. I'm still waiting for those type of decisions from him and those in-game adjustments. Like I said, it's been kind of mellow to this point because we went to Tennessee. We smacked them in the mouth. We just got off the Texans game. I'm still waiting for that opportunity for him to prove himself that, hey, yeah, I got this. And that's when coaches make their money. That's when you find out who's elite and who isn't.
Well, and the defense you mentioned, we talked a little bit about it earlier. Byron Murphy having a I was going to say resurgent season, but I don't think it's fair. I think it's just a surgent season, right? Like he's not resurging because he never surged to begin with. This is sort of a breakout year for him, but he hasn't faced Aaron Rodgers or someone of that caliber yet. And so I was going to be really interested to see, okay, how do they handle Davante Adams? Well, now no Davante Adams. I was really excited at the beginning of the year. Let's see Jair Alexander against DeAndre Hopkins. Well, now it's going to be Eric Stokes against DeAndre Hopkins. Now I'm still excited to see Stokes in that matchup. It's a litmus test. It's a tensile test and all of that. The matchups are just not the same. Like if these two teams play again in January, they're going to be very different teams. Yeah. And I wonder from that standpoint too, does that change the way that you game plan here? I don't have a good answer for that. I never think that, coaches will get credit. This is a Belichick thing too. Belichick will lose a game and everyone goes, well, he was saving stuff for the playoffs. Was he, or did they just lose? You know what I mean? And so I think we sometimes overcredit coaches for playing these things close to the vest. Sometimes you just get beat. But I do wonder if there is some idea here, or if you're the Cardinals, if you're Cliff, to your point, are you coming in this week going, this is when we prove it? Thursday night in front of the whole world against Aaron Rodgers. Who cares who else is coming out of the tunnel? It's the G on the head, and it's Aaron Rodgers, and it's the Green Bay Packers. Let's go make a statement, man. Like that has to be the mindset, right?
Absolutely. I was just talking about this earlier today. This is that game, and I played on a Cardinal or a Falcons team in '98, the 14-2 Falcons, and went to the Super Bowl. And at one point, Peter, during the season, we got to 9-2, 10-2, and people were still looking at us like they haven't played anybody. It does, it's just it's the same old Falcons, In week 11 or 12, I can't remember which one it was, we had the San Francisco 49ers come to our house, and this is after they spanked us in week 3. My brother was on that team with Jerry Rice, Steve Young, young Terrell Owens, Garrison Hurst. I mean, they were loaded, right? They came to our house, and we actually put it on them. And that's when eyes started to open up like, wow, maybe those Falcons really are for real. Same thing goes for the Cardinals here in this situation. I don't care who comes walking through the door. Like you said, with that green G on the helmet, this is a victory that could open some eyes. This is a victory that all of a sudden now, especially being the last undefeated team, not in week 3 or 4, but in week 8, people would definitely have to start saying, well, wow, those Cardinals are actually doing something that, we might need to pay attention to. And I'll throw out one thing. The loss of Davante Adams, Peter, might, and I'm not saying you never want to lose a weapon like that, right? But maybe this is an Aaron Jones game. I'm not sure if you've been paying attention to our running defense. We've been doing a lot of things, getting after quarterbacks, causing some chaos. The one thing we haven't done is when a team decides they want to run against us, that includes, other than Tennessee, but Jacksonville, which is not what you call a juggernaut on the ground. We've had some teams that said, hey, let's test the middle of that run defense out, and they have simply gassed us. So with that being said, this might be an opportunity, and I know coaches, I've been in the rooms before. Game plan is, look, we're down Davante. This is how we're going after this one. And keep an eye on that one early. If you guys start running the ball and Aaron's picking up 10, 11 at a chunk, that might turn into how you guys attack us. And then Aaron on play action, forget about it. So even coming in without Davante, if that's the case, I don't put it by Green Bay coming in here and getting this win. I'm kind of leaning the way of the Cardinals just because every time I've picked against them, they've won, which I've done several times this year. So now I'm thinking, man, maybe I need to go ahead and jump on board like everybody else, but we'll see.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that was going to be my last question here is if you were going to put together, if you're in that Cardinals coaching room, and you're going, man, I hope that they don't do this, because this is where I think that they have the matchup advantage, or this is where the gameplay, if the Packers do this thing, that is the way that they can beat the Cardinals. And maybe it's a couple things, but just paint me that roadmap for how the Packers do get a win.
Run game and play action.
Yeah.
And then take advantage of our secondary is still young. They're still learning. We got a couple of unique pieces out there with Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins. They're kind of like odd pieces on the chessboard, though. We're still trying to figure out how to necessarily use them. But our secondary has, I think what's happened is we've been able to put so much kind of confusion up front with our 7 that it hasn't given the opposition time to figure out and expose our secondary. It's almost like Vance is like, hey, before they get a chance to see it, let's muddy it up. And I think that's what's been the picture so far. If you can establish the run game, and then all of a sudden, we have that in front of us, and then you throw us a little play action at us and some different things, that could, Aaron is the master at play action and going deep, getting over the top. And that could be the kryptonite that beats us, the big plays. Nobody's hit us with those big plays because we haven't given them time so far this year. But if you can figure out a way to get Aaron some time, and the other thing with a quarterback like Aaron Peter, like we faced some quarterbacks, we faced the rookie Davis Mills with Houston this past week. We faced some guys that aren't quite there yet. There is nothing that Aaron hasn't seen yet.
Right.
There's nothing he can't check out of, or there's no way you can kind of disguise and kind of surprise him. That's going to be the big test. Can you do something to maybe make him double think just for a second to give you that extra, split second for our defense to get there, or confuse him in a coverage and have him throw one in, up in the air and we grab it. But, the likelihoods of those, that's those ones you're like, wow, after the game, man, we actually got one. I don't know if we're going to get one against Aaron, but if we can stop you guys from running the ball and then, like I said, keep everything in front of us, we got a shot in this one.
This was great. I really appreciate you taking the time. Maybe this is something that we can do again in January. What do you think?
Peter, absolutely. And like I said, we do the BLeave podcast, but we do our radio show every Saturday out here on 1060 AM. Love to have you on, and maybe even this Saturday we can figure that out. But yeah, definitely want to stay in touch, man. And like I said, this is great. I love doing these, and appreciate you having me on.
All right, thanks to Ed for coming on the show. Thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. We've got you covered on all things Packers. But with the trade deadline right around the corner, don't miss our NFL trade deadline show. Reaction to every move, plus a second half season preview and much more. Catch the show live from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, November 2nd on the Locked On NFL YouTube page. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. Back and better than ever, a new web interface for the start of basketball season, more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online remains your number one spot for all your basketball and football action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use that promo code Locked On. From basketball, football, baseball, postseason, NHL, boxing, UFC, you're down to your favorite Las Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of the amazing offers for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. And today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible to stock all the parts you need at your local chain auto parts store. So why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questions and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. So save time, save money. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? You don't have to do that. You don't have to give them their money. You don't have to give your money away. RockAuto.com is a family business. They serve do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. You don't know what these prices are supposed to be. I don't know what these parts are supposed to cost. So go somewhere where the prices are always reliably low for every customer. Go explore their easy-to-use website today and find a solution for all your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck and write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. All right, we're going to be back tomorrow. How you doing in full effect? Our crossover show, of course, and then live after the game. We will go live right after Packers and Cardinals finish up live on YouTube. Go subscribe to us on YouTube. We would love to see you there. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked on Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked on Packers. And anytime you want to hit us up on the Locked on Packers fan hotline, you can do that, 920-341-3775 to stay Locked on Packers.